Welcome to Lower episode 59. We have a very special episode for you guys today. We have two guests with us. I'd like them to introduce themselves. Why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself.
Well, I guess I can start. My name is Charles Huang. My brother Acai and I started a company called RedOctane, and we made a game called Guitar Hero.
Woo.
Crazy.
There you go. And I'm Lee Guinchard, and we embrace a Freemode, which of course houses Cracked, and of course,
What's Cracked?
it's the doohickey.
Anyway, of course.
Yes, sir.
thing.
We love
Yeah.
the doohickey.
Yeah,
Pretty cool thing.
Of course, my history goes back many years with Charles back in the day. So we come on here to talk some lore.
Yes.
That's right. That's what we're all about. That's what the podcast was about. We've all been super fans of the Guitar Hero genre, Rock Band as well, all the 5-fret rhythm gaming genre that Guitar Hero helped spawn. And then shortly after we started this podcast, a little game called Fortnite Festival just fell into our laps, and that's kind of where we've been. But it all would have never been a thing if Guitar Hero wasn't a thing. So, first of all, thank you. It's an honor to be able to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you all for playing the game. Thank you all for playing the game.
Yeah. Hey, you're welcome.
Gladly.
Gladly, yeah.
So where do you want to start? Let's talk about let's go all the way back. Let's go back to before Guitar Hero even. Charles, what was RedOctane like in the early days?
Well, we started our company in '99. So you guys maybe not even born in '99.
We're all old here.
Oh,
I'm as young as I'm
I-
97.
You're fine.
I was the age that my daughter is right now in '99. So there you go.
But
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a long time. We were doing this online game rental service. Remember when Netflix was sending DVDs through the mail?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
were doing that, except this was the age it was. It was for Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 2 had just come out, and the Nintendo GameCube. It was that era. They were all discs, and we're shipping them through the mail. But it was through that service that we learned about all these music games from Japan that were playable on modded PlayStation 1s. And we had a bunch of people in the office who were fans of those rhythm games, and we were playing them and decided that we wanted to be in that business. And it started with, back then, the most popular one was Dance Dance Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And DDR had not made it to the US yet, but people were playing the Japanese versions that you could gray market and buy and mod their PlayStation 1s and play them here. But they couldn't get the dance pads, so we started selling dance pads. And then we started making our own dance pads. And then from there, we made a dance game. This was over the course of 5 years. We made a dance game called In the Groove with a studio in Austin, Texas called Rockstar Games.
Well, wait. Y'all made In the Groove?
Yeah,
Hold on.
Holy
Y'all made
crap.
ITG. You guys made ITG. That is ridiculous. That's like finding out that, it's like the clone hero of dance games. That's crazy.
Yeah, they started
my
off as an
God.
arcade game, and we worked with them, right? Those guys in Texas, and we made a PlayStation 2, ported that to PlayStation 2, and that was our first game. So we were a publisher, and then the second game we did with Harmonix, that was Guitar Hero.
Well, second game Guitar Hero, and it's just a worldwide phenomenon.
What a catalog.
Knocked out of
Wow.
the park there.
Still not over ITG. That's insane.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no. I think it's just in 2005 there was little to no rhythm games in the Western side. I was playing Donkey Konga on the GameCube.
Me too.
And then it was that was 2003, 2004.
And then DDR for me after Donkey Konga. Donkey Konga was my first rhythm game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you and me, JP, we had the same pipeline of rhythm games. We started there. I had a shitty day at the dentist, and then my mom was like, "Let's go get a game at Circuit City," and I got Donkey Konga. So I got that, and then that was my pipeline into rhythm games. And then I learned about was that DDR Mario mix or something? Was that was
Mario
around then?
Mix.
Yeah. And then my brother told me about Guitar Hero 1, which I didn't like at first. I didn't like it at first
Me
because
too.
I'm dominant. My dominant is my left hand, but then my dad was like, "You should play lefty mode," and I was like, "This sucks. I don't like this." Playing Iron Man, and the frets were upside down. It was unintuitive, and so I don't know. And then my brother brought it home that November, and then the rest is history.
I forgot how similar our stories are, me and you, Alec, because like my first introduction to Guitar Hero was my mom knew what the game was. Like she saw it on TV or whatever, and she was like, I like this game. I think my son will like this game too. And then she brought me to a GameStop in probably 2006. It was probably after the game had launched. And she was like, try this game. I'm like, it's whatever. I was 8 years old at the time. And later on that year, my cousin bought the game, brought it to like our family Thanksgiving. I played it. I was like, I get it now. This is actually really fun. and then it's all history from there.
It's so funny hearing that RedOctane did stuff like after seeing their employees like doing like things with modded PlayStations. Y'all are all talking about your starts with rhythm games. Mine was on a modded PlayStation, getting an old Bomani game and playing it with a PlayStation controller the way people are doing with Fortnite Festival nowadays. But that was my introduction, was trying to play one of the Bomani games on a PlayStation controller. And I'm so curious, since we're all talking about our experiences, what are your two guys' first rhythm games? What got you guys in the gate?
The first rhythm game I played was Parappa the Rapper. That was like
old, that's a good one.
Yeah, and that's
just a good one
on a controller. This is before people like built controllers for rhythm games. And and that we always believed in that play mechanic, just rhythm beat matching, right? Find the rhythm, match the rhythm. Like it just was so fun and seemed to work on every platform. Like in the arcade, it was fun, right? On a PlayStation 1, it was fun. Later on PC and then mobile, like that. There's something like very basic and very fun about that. So to find the rhythm and match that rhythm, that play mechanic.
Lee, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, mine. I came into that not necessarily playing it to start with. Back in the 90s, I had a company called Joytac, which was a European sort of accessory company, and we grew very fast, and we acquired a group in Hong Kong who were a development house. So they weren't a factory, a development house, and they were making Beatmania controllers for the Japanese market, and of course they also made a Konami guitar as well. At one point. Now, of course, they were third party and stuff, but so obviously I was there. We sort of owned them, and they were making, they were our engineering team in a sense. So I was kind of curious, about this stuff, and of course then pretty fast after that the DDR thing kind of came, so we jumped onto that as well in Europe, similar to Charles, but maybe not as high end on the dance pad market. We were more high volume, lower cost kind of thing back in those days. Where you did those, but you also did those metal ones, and those big thick pads. And in fact, that's how we first got to know each other, because I think you needed some help with a bit of issue with one of those, and I sent Jack down, one of our engineers, to have a quick look, and he I think he fixed it pretty quickly. And then we that's how we kind of connected, I think, right? So really that's where I came from, and I think Papa Barappa and all this kind of stuff again was was in the industry forever. So interesting games.
Oh yeah.
When it when it came down to like the inception of Guitar Hero, you guys already knew it was like RedOctane provides the utmost premium experience for like rhythm games. Like that, you guys were already in that headspace.
So the irony was we met Harmonix through Sony. Harmonix had made a game called Frequency and Amplitude. I don't know if you guys,
yeah, sure.
Yep.
And Sony originally called us and said, "Hey, you guys make hardware. Would you maybe try to make a controller for Amplitude?" That was the second one, right? And so that's how we met Harmonix. We chatted a little bit, and nothing came of it. We didn't have any good ideas for that. And then I would say probably maybe 6-8 months later, we told them, "Hey, we're thinking about making a guitar game. And they said, that's funny. We've been thinking about making a guitar game. And that's actually how the whole project came together, was the second sort of go around with harmonics after the first one failed for frequency and amplitude. That was sort of, so I always have to thank Sony for bringing us together.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Sony.
match made in heaven. Really, it sounds like you
really.
both were on the same sort of wavelength at the same time. It just worked out well.
But I think that's what they had in mind, was exactly what you said, was like, okay, these guys make rhythm games and these guys make rhythm game hardware, so let's try to put them together in a room, see what comes out of it. And then, unfortunately, nothing came out of it for the first time.
Hey, worked for the second time though. So
It worked very well.
what was the early idea of what Guitar Hero would be? How different or how similar is it to what the final product ended up being?
Well, you guys all
Game and
played-
hardware.
Yeah, you played Guitar Freaks, so you kind of remember Guitar Freaks was one. It was kind of like this mishmash of different songs, like some J-pop, whatever, a little bit of jazz, sort of like just synth, like a whole bunch of different. And sometimes you were playing to the drum track, sometimes you were playing to the guitar track, and it wasn't sort of a game about any specific music in general. It was just a guitar and that. And so what we had when we talked to Harmonix was we had this idea of making a guitar game about rock and roll and metal. We said, like, if you're going to build a guitar game, it should be about rock and metal, and everything in the game should be rock and metal, from the songs to the characters and all that. And that was kind of how the conversation started. And the idea was to make you feel like you were a rock star while you were playing that game. And so we kind of set off with that idea, with like everything in the game was to one of the producers, I think at Harmonix, had this question. He said, like, everything we do should rock. And whatever, who's working on something should ask themselves, does this rock? If you're working on a character, like, and then you're an animator, you have to say, like, does this character rock? And if you're looking at a song for the set list, you have to say, does this song rock? And that's kind of how that came together.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense from what I've heard, at least from earlier stuff, of like the development process of Guitar Hero 1. There was a few songs that were like in the bonus set list or whatever that was like, could you rework that? We need to sound more rocky. It doesn't really fit the aesthetic we're going for, stuff like that. And knowing what the final game looks like, I feel like that idea kind of worked. It definitely followed through on the is it rock? Yes, okay, it's in the game type thing.
Yeah. And it was a fairly low budget effort, if you remember Guitar Hero 1. Like we didn't, because we were independent and Harmonix was independent, so we didn't have a lot of money. And so it was a fairly low budget effort. And so we kind of, if you saw the game, they took whatever they had from previous games. They had made a game called Karaoke Revolution for Konami.
Yeah.
So like the backgrounds basically came from that game. And the highway note chart came from frequency and amplitude, and so that was how kind of that game got pieced together. And then we set about to make a guitar, and we started that whole project in February and shipped the game by November.
Wow, that's so quick. That's so quick.
It's a
That's
fast
around for a
turnaround.
mass-produced piece of plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
And-
like
months.
like you
7
hadn't
months,
seen
man.
one of that size before. You like you saw like Eat the Door, but it's like those were like like arcades and
Specialized.
yeah, but something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean the one that they shipped out in the U.S. had, or not in the U.S., in Japan, like it had like for PS1 had like 3 frets. It didn't even have 5 frets, if I remember correctly.
Like for home
Yeah.
consoles, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That was one of the key things. Like with 3, you never had to move your fingers, right? Like
Yeah.
adding that 5th button is what kicked up the difficulty. As you guys, like anyone who's ever played, that was like the minute you had to move your hand right to another button, the difficulty, that was a big cliff. And so like for us, it was important to get to like 5 buttons to make you feel like it. There was an early version. The first demo was in fact still 3 buttons, and it was fun.
Wow.
But we didn't feel like, Harmonix, and we had made this 3. It was just like a black screen with 3 colored dots scrolling down, and like it just didn't quite feel like it was
that's
enough.
Probably the dope nose build that we.
The dope nose. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
the dope nose build,
There we go.
Oh yeah. That's like holy grail. If we could find a copy of that somewhere floating out in the world, if we could see like the
That'd be
earliest
incredible.
rendition of what guitar would have been, that'd be like
Yeah.
one game
It's
of like
Popstar
collector
guitar,
type
right?
stuff.
No, no.
Popstar guitar.
No,
is
Lee,
full
about
on.
that
No.
He loves Popstar guitar. Lee's the biggest
Get this guy
Popstar
outta
guitar
here.
fan I know, even more than Steel Cage.
We want the build of the different color order as well, because it wasn't GRYBO originally.
Yeah, it was rainbow colors.
Yeah.
RGB.
And what prompted that change? Like, were you guys just like, it's not really working? You know, like,
You mean with the colors or with the
The
yeah,
color
like
order.
the color order of the frets.
That's a good question. Man, I don't know. It's funny. Because I imagine we started in February and we finished in November, so things were moving so fast, right?
Well, it
And-
shipped in November. It had to be done months earlier to get it like
Yes.
produced and shipped over, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like the guitars came over on a boat from China, right? So I had to get
Yeah.
over. And so like a lot of decisions were made really fast. And that particular like those colored notes, we had no idea, I think, when we were doing it, that like that became like the sort of the iconography, as they call it, of the game. Like you saw these like memes where people were like put those 5 colored notes on a tuba and called it Tuba Hero, right? And like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mike
Became
Myers did
synonymous.
yeah. Like Mike Myers on what was it on? It was like on the I think it was on the Grammys, did a skit where he had a movie called The Love Guru at the time.
Nice.
And so he did this like spoof where he was playing this game called Sitar Hero. And like
Yes.
yeah. And we didn't realize, like, oh, those color buttons in that sequence, like that became the sort of the iconic what people remember from that,
It
that
really
game. and that
did.
color.
It really did. You know,
Stays to this day in every other
It's
game.
like it was a happy accident in the way, because it's like it was probably a simple decision where it's like, oh yeah, let's make the colors in this order. Actually, like nobody thought of anything of it at the time. I would imagine it's like the colors are this order now, and then like a year later, it's like you said, like now it's the iconography of this like this brand, you know, this new hot thing in the video game market that everybody's talking about, you know.
Yeah, it was probably like just one of the animators decided, like, hey, let's do it in this order. Like, okay.
That's true.
Wow.
It's like a simple decision, you know.
Yeah.
So I got a question on this though. When you got all these different colors, eventually you're talking about how the game was conceptualized, the original concepts of it. We know that long term there was a idea that got thrown around, never got made, which was that purple fret. I'm curious, are there any other mechanics that you guys thought about that you go, oh well, that didn't work, but maybe the ones that didn't work that you could share now potentially, like just mechanics you thought of that you thought maybe this will be cool, and then they just didn't make the cut?
Well, you never made the pedal. That never happened.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking of things we might not know.
Yeah, we might not know about. Yeah.
Secret.
Lee might remember remember there was, in the Explorer guitar, there was a port.
Yeah, that was the pedal. Yeah.
Yeah, right? And
Yeah.
that, like,
Yeah.
how did that discussion start? Like, I can't
Oh,
remember.
and it's in the Les Paul as well. Yeah, so of course the GH1, what Charles is sort of talking about there, was like incredibly fast, right? So once you're locked,
There you go.
you're loaded, you're done. Like, it's kind of whatever. And then of course once we were onto two, but then in that period of time also, which was a short period of time, there was a big acquisition into Activision, right? So from our perspective, we're kind of working with one arm, we're still working with harmonics, and then on another arm, we're kind of firing up with Neversoft, like 443. So we kind of, as a small team at RedOctane, we're kind of straddling, and this thing's kind of cranking in a sense. But to your point, there was things that we, kind of felt that you have to improve as you go along. And that early, I would say, Interworld tour, that was a period where we did a lot of prototyping. Now, the reason the pedal jack was in there because, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you had a pedal I don't know what for, but if you're going to build a whole bunch of guitars, especially for these new platforms, 360, PS3, and Wii, then hey, let's put something in there, and maybe we'll come back to it. Every year when we were looking at it, hey, pedal, and we'd prototype something, and then let's not do a pedal.
Interesting.
But it was in the hardware to a point where you have a tipping point on cost of goods, because the bigger you get, then it's just like, okay, what do we start taking out? And I think later on you'll see that pedal port sort of left in a sense, right? I think the purple fret, that was later on.
That's GH7.
Yeah, I think
Cancelled 7.
Charles. That was a Karthik special, I think. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, early on, Lee's group, admittedly, Lee had to clean up a lot of the sort of the stuff that we were doing on the cheap and on the quick for Guitar Hero 1. Like, 'cause there was time, there was budget, and there was a lot of, like, if you guys picked up that controller, the star power is activated by
a ball tilt switch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Like, and that was like quick and dirty, kind of like, and that's what Guitar Freaks had used, and we're like, okay, this just go with the same thing. Like, we don't have time to try to make it any better. And so Lee's team came in, and they changed that then to a chip accelerometer where you can detect motion, right? And so that got rid of that because people would complain all the time about like, it didn't activate star power, and like, yeah, it's like a mechanical switch, and it wasn't.
Yeah, and also those switches at times they got kind of ganged up. So again, sometimes they wouldn't work. They'd just get stuck and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, you had them dual facing for lefty and righty, right? I believe.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. And we had to get to wireless because people wanted wireless controllers, and the PS2 that was just a straight cable. That was it was actually quite elegant, I thought, for the time, because you didn't have to mess with pairing when you opened the box up. Like, you just brought it home, plugged it in, and like within 5 minutes you were playing Guitar Hero 1.
And that's what everybody likes, right?
Yeah,
plug and play.
Turn on the game
Plug and
and just
play.
play it.
Yeah.
It's a lost art nowadays.
Even with the accelerometer, once we was in with Neversoft, we did a whole bunch of sort of prototyping around that sort of in game. So a lot more than sort of star power, but we couldn't get consistent because those accelerometers, unlike gyros, you get drift with them, right?
And it's happening now.
In free space, So there was things that we wanted to do, and we'd get it working. It'd be really cool, with avatars and stuff like that. But then all of a sudden you get drift. So you got to think about, can you make 1 million plus of these things all consistently the same, right? And you've got to have it that the end user really doesn't have to configure too much, right? Otherwise it's not mass market, then it becomes quite narrow. So we were quick playing with that, but then quick to discount it for that year. Every year we come back to it, of course.
Well, the accelerometers got better over time. Like the Les Paul and the Explorer. Like the Explorer has like a bit of a delay too with the accelerometer, but the Les Paul got it better. But I imagine you guys
it was so sensitive. Do you remember, JP, when it first came out? Like, you would barely lift the thing, and I was activating
the Les
star
Pauls,
power.
they're hit or miss. The ones that I come
like
across,
this, bro.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're holding it like this, now you activate it. Or otherwise, like, when's it gonna go? Like,
you probably calibrated.
After that was fine.
20 years, and you've probably been goofing around with the boards in there.
Yeah, they're so old now. That thing's a completely different
I just
side.
remember when it first came out. Like, I was just like, oh my god, it's going like that, and I was trying to like score chase and stuff. So I had to hold the Les Paul like that. But
that's nostalgia.
I also.
No.
Also,
all the problems we had to do. I mean, that they were calibrated in factory, right?
That's what I was gonna say. But then they arrive and they drifted. Right?
Yeah. So
that's the problem.
So to your point, Jason, I guess there was a whole bunch through the Neversoft times where we were playing with a whole bunch of stuff. But again, the restricting thing we always had was timeline, right? Because we were working on an annual sort of cadence, right? So and we had such small team, and even Neversoft to a degree, they were focused on that game, and then they would kind of ship the game, have a couple of weeks rest, and then they'd be going again. Like, you know, now we did have other studios, but they were all linking into Neversoft, like, you know, so they're all feeder studios for all these different, you know, formats. But we did have time where we kind of went crazy, and then you'd have things that would stick, like obviously the slider, for example.
Touch bar.
Again, that was something that some, you know, folks wanted to try. It worked fairly quickly, and it could be consistent. So it's just like, let's do that then. So, you know, again, if you'd actually properly gone with that, you know, for an extra few months, you probably would have gone, well, do we really need that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
What was the original
idea, but
what was the original idea behind having the slider there? Was it just because Harmonix was doing solo buttons down there, so hey, we have to have some sort of other thing on the neck, or was it just genuinely because?
Yeah,
just
I
because why
think
not?
You got a couple of things right. You have, you know, in this earlier guitar, and I'd say to 3, when you get to 3, the first Neversoft game, I think everything was pure 1 to 3 in a sense, where it was all about, you know, the experience and doing sort of the best we can. We reset ourselves with Neversoft again, but once you get into that thing where you're that big, and then you have the machine, you know, the question that comes up: innovate, right? And I'm all for innovation, and I think you are, Charles, as well. But sometimes you find yourself innovating for the sake of innovating, like, and I think you can see evidence of that. I think through the series, sometimes innovation might be based on what others are doing.
Well, yeah,
maybe, you know.
Yeah, I think that right there, the thing that was in the background at that time. If you remember, Guitar Hero 1, 2005, end of 2005. Guitar Hero 3 was 2007, and in there came the iPhone 1, and suddenly everybody was, I think in the back of people's mind, it was like, hey, touch is cool. Like, you know.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
They're such separate things in my brain, you know.
I
But
had an
at the
iPod
same
Touch.
time,
I love that thing. You know.
And we'd had we had been playing around with a little bit in some of our offshoots on that touch stuff, but it wasn't necessarily for a slider. It was for other things.
Brian Bright has posted some pictures of the concepts that you guys messed with on Les Pauls too. There's one where there's like a JST connector coming out of the neck. Just plugs in quick and dirty. I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know.
And really, a lot of that sort of stuff that we did was skunkworks, proper skunkworks, and super fast. Yeah, because you have to either prove it out or it fails. Otherwise, if you going on that sort of timeline with the small team that we had, there was no way that you'd actually be able to get into production on anything, you know. So again, as it grew, it just became crazy, like, you know. I mean,
well, it grew so fast too, you know. Just a couple years later, bam! First ever video game to sell $1 billion in sales. Like, where were we 2 years ago?
What the heck, man?
Like, the budget for Guitar Hero 1 was like a couple $1 million just a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember the first sales forecast came in for Guitar Hero 3, and somebody said, "I think we could sell 700 million." And I said, "Man, if we tell that to the management at Activision, they're gonna think we're smoking crack. There's no way."
It needed more.
Yeah, I know we did more than that. But at that scale, what Lee was talking about too is like, sometimes we would find something, and then you would have to decide, like, can we build this at that speed? That, because, you know, this is like a Christmas game, and you had to, I think at our peak, Lee would know more. Like, I think weren't we running at like 400,000 plus units a week at the peak?
Yeah, that was yeah.
Yeah,
that
it's like there was a lot of stuff where it was just like, we can't do that. You know, at that volume, and then you kind of have to give up.
My question is, what was like the drums environment like? Because, you know, it always just was like, did they just make this in a couple of months? And that's probably the case, right? Was it not the case?
Oh no, the face palm.
You're laughing, Charles, because you know it's the bane of my life. Yeah, the drum.
We were sitting on a factory floor for probably like a month straight trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Well, the drums weren't anything super new, right? I think we were prototyping with drums early, just and it wasn't necessarily meant to be. When we were first playing with it, Charles, it was not going to be integrated into GH. It was like maybe it'd be another game, like a drum game or something. So we had been playing with that, and we had an engineer at the time called Jack Macaulay, who's
I've heard of Jack, and I know that I heard that he invented the mouse scroll wheel. Is that true?
Invented, yeah. I don't know what he invented, but I guess many
what?
things. But actually, to be honest, he was a proponent of the MIDI drum stuff, So Jack's a really good. He's a really good engineer, but he's very good at making prototypes that work, and very, 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 very smart. So we had this kind of little video game like drum kit thing that was he made it out of plywood, right? And then had these these sort of things, and it's really interesting how it was working. And then of course guitar is just going crazy, on the other side, and so that was purely a prototyping thing that was on the side. And then we were in, obviously Rock Band came out, right? The first Rock Band 1, and we were in GH3, and let's do band if we're going to compete, I guess. Was the thing from the whole group, all of us together, So originally, the drum thing was going to be. It wasn't going to be a big. It was going to support all of these instruments, but it wasn't going to be a band kit to start with. Because we really hadn't got. You can't really make a drum kit that quick, right? Especially with what we were trying to do with all the other stuff going off. And of course, if you're shipping a single accessory versus having it bundled with game, at lower volumes, it's a different timeline, right? So we got over that Christmas where we hit the $1 billion mark, and we then kind of went into sort of March time, and I think we had one of our GL meetings or whatever, and someone from high up, who shall remain nameless, said, we've got to stick it, the main SKU's got to be a band bundle. And I had a big problem with that, right? Because it's just like, well, how are we going to do that then? Because the scale of what we were actually on trajectory for is so different. It's kind of like the difference between shipping 200,000 and 5 million. You know what I mean? It's
and just the physical size of the things is the box is huge, and then also the timeline to make a drum from basically scratch
nothing,
almost nothing. And by that time, guitars, we were pretty dialed in on those anyway. As in, but this was something new. So yeah, it was crazy. I mean, we had to camp out with Jared and the crew in China and just knuckle down and try and get it done. And Brian at Neversoft was actually a great advocate on that end, because he was kind of our guy at Neversoft that was the tinkerer, so he would be prototyping and then working with all the groups back there, and we were trying to get this drum production ready, and it was, oh my God, it was the hardest thing ever.
We started off with Neversoft with kind of like two key ideas we wanted to introduce with the drums. One was, like we said, the drum experience should be you can cross your hand, because that makes you feel like you're drumming. That was one thing. And then the other was we wanted you to be able to hit the drum pad hard or soft, and the game should be able to tell and do something different. And so that was, I think, two of the big innovations we wanted to push. And then Lee and his team then had to go back and mechanically design the drum set, right? So you can cross your hand like a real drum kit. And then the other one was, like, how do you get the drum pads to detect hard and soft hits? And I think those two things led to what these talking about the bands. So the 2 levels meant bigger boxes, so we had to deal with that. And then the hard and soft was a specific sensor, a piezoelectric sensor, which I still have nightmares when somebody mentions piezoelectric.
Yeah, they were you know, you get a bit of crosstalk sometimes from the substrate that it was.
One and the other one vibrates. Yeah.
And of course we was running it through the MIDI thing was another thing, which was good for this because that was the approach that we did to sort of get there with that that velocity stuff. But yeah, it was just again, I think give another 4 months, I think you'd probably had something that was superb. I mean, it ended up being fine, but that early those early production units. I mean, I was on the line, stopping the line. Okay, go again, stop again. And because you got to have consistency there, right? With this stuff, you can't be what you don't want with this stuff is a recall or anything like that. So so internally it was crazy, but it ended up fine in the end. And of course, you notice the I think I saw something on one of your either blogs or Lore Heroes about the little MIDI adapters that we had, right? So when we were doing this in one of our campouts for God knows how long in China, Tim Clark came up with this idea saying, well, you know what? You got these tolerances, and if these tolerances are out in the field, you get a lot of just general players won't even know, but you'll get these super fans that will just know. Yeah. So let's just make this little adapter and just send it to them, and they can tune their own drum kits up.
I had that thing. Yeah. I used the program.
That's the thing. It's like you guys have always, everyone, you guys are kind of tapped into understanding who is diehard within the community and things like that. Yeah. And it still, it still goes to show now, with Cracked. Like, I'm sure with that new guitar, whatever it may be, whatever type of stuff is inside of it, I'm sure it's going to make a lot of people happy, both people who want to come back to the game or grew up with the game and just know that baseline of stuff, or guys like us who never stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so that's the kind of hope that we have, and I'm sure you guys already know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta help me out, Lee, because it's like I'm tired of this shit, man.
He's got boxes full of it.
They gotta go. Like, please help me.
Yeah, we had a couple guys in the group in the company, Raul and Mark, who really they were probably the only people that could play at your guys' level, and they could tell us like, hey, this button's or it is not right, or the game software is not right, and you're like, are you sure? It's like, yeah, because I'm hitting it right, and you're like, with me, I would be like, I play expert level, but I'd be like, I think I must be missing it, right? But they were like, no, the game's wrong, or like, no, this
it's so valuable to have
right.
on your team. It's so valuable to have that because it
is.
I don't want to brag, but yeah, we are good at the game. We've been playing forever. We know what's up, and we notice things that people might not notice that would still benefit every player, and that's something that's come up a few times with Fortnite Festival. It's like, hey, this doesn't work right. You guys should change that. It'll be better for the majority of people. And like they've been listening to our feedback, and the game has gotten better because of it. I think it's very valuable to have like really high skill players giving feedback, software and hardware wise, just because they're tastemakers in a way. They know what's up.
Yeah, I think that was important. I mean, that's important when we come back, over this last sort of 6 months, year that we've been sort of looking at coming back into this space a bit, with modern technology and modern platforms and YouTubes and all this kind of stuff. Of course, you folks, you sort of stand out there, as crazy fans that just spend loads of times doing this stuff. And
too much.
Back in those days, like 20 years ago, sure, there was online forums and stuff, but Mark and Raoul weren't hanging out on forums. They were hanging out down Golfland, jumping around DDR. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And Mark is a collector of all that Japanese rhythm stuff as well, right? Do you remember the what was it, the arcade thing you bought that time? And
oh yeah, Kraken DJ.
Yeah,
Kraken DJ.
Yeah,
it's this weird DJ game with 2 turntables that Mark insisted, like, hey, we got to have one in the office. And so
That's
quite
awesome.
funny, like, because when we were finished closing with the office at the end, we had this cracking DJ, and all the way through, Mark had left many years ago because he wasn't into Skylander toys or GH Live. But he would always call. He would always call up, say, "Hey, any chance, if you ever get rid of that cracking DJ, I'll buy it off you," and all this. So it came that we were finishing all this hardware stuff at Activision, and the stuff would just be got rid of, So I called up Mark, said, "Hey, in fact, I had Trina call up Mark, and Trina called him up, and he went, "Oh, I'm really, I can't really afford anything at the moment. So Trina said, "Oh, he can't really afford anything." I said, "No, tell him he can have it. Yeah, it's like he can just come and get it. Within 2 hours, there was a U-Haul outside. Mark's like, "Hi guys," So I think to that point where I'm sort of going there is that early on when Aro was making dance mats, I mean, I think you was an advocate of this, Charles, where you went down Golfland and literally hung out there and did your research. And here I go, there's some local lads that are into this stuff. Do you fancy coming to work for a company doing this? Yeah.
No brainer.
That's so cool.
Dream.
So RedOctane was kind of built, with internal fans. Sure, in a world of Activision, they may have been seen originally as just QA or whatever, but QA are really important, and they're QA who actually love that genre as well. So you couple the two together, and you've got really important sort of people in the process. So, when I came in, Raoul, for example, barely spoke Raoul, did he? I mean, he just grunted every now and then. But by the time we got to GH5, he was a lot more outward going. He could express things that was happening in our prototype hardware, linking it with the software. You become a real expert end to end, and those folks were really invaluable to us, and they really were unsung heroes. You see all the executives running around, when something hits 1 billion units, but they're still in there cranking away, hitting massive scores. So I think so that's why this becomes really quite interesting to me in particular with folks like you, because you guys you're really into this stuff, and the attention to detail is is incredible. And that's how you got to do it. If you're developing in this space, you've got to listen to that. Now, not everything, I'm sure, will translate into a mass producible thing. I don't know, but you've got to take everything and take a look at it, and see what we can do. So,
yeah, we used to say we had to make folks like you who've played every game want to buy the next one. And so you had to sit there thinking, how are we going to do that? They played every single one up until now. And then at the same time, we had to think about okay, we have people who have never played any of the Guitar Hero games. How do we make them buy the next one? And so there was this a bunch of thought put into okay, at the very highest end of players, somebody who can play expert level every single song right out the gate. How do we make them want to play the next one? And then the same thing is somebody who 5 years into this still hasn't bought the game. How do we make them come and buy, and play? And so that was where we spent a lot of our time in terms of design, was trying to figure out both ends of that. And that's there was no such thing as podcasting back then. There was no way to get people's feedback back then. So we had to go and dig around arcades and places like that to try to get that. And so we did what we could to get it. Yeah,
getting tapped into the community
physically, Yes.
That's super commendable. Who does that now? Now it's just like, hey, does this guy have a TikTok? Is he crazy or something like that?
He has so many followers. Must know what he's talking
He's
about.
got this many followers. He knows what he's talking about. No, fuck that. Fuck all of that.
Yeah, I think also from us, the whole guitarist story is interesting because it means different things for different people, right? We've all had different experiences. So, of course, I have my Guitar Hero experience, which
from the inside.
Started it then and went sort of, to was it 2015, 2016, or 2015 when that last one came. Through my eyes, so I'll always speak through my eyes. Obviously, Charles's eyes are slightly different to mine. You're before and then you sort of finished before, but from a different perspective. You've got the folks at Brian's dudes at Neversoft, then you've got the harmonics guys. So for all the different angles and through the different times, everyone has different memories. So. And I think everybody has contributed throughout the years. Whoever's worked on it. There's folks I've met and goes, "Oh, I knew someone who was really working on Guitar Hero back in the day." Oh, I didn't even know who they were. I said, "Oh, really?" He probably did. He's probably somewhere in Activision, somewhere doing something in marketing. Just that I was just probably camped out in China making drums or something.
It's funny. I just played through the Guitar Hero 6 prototype disc that I got recently, and I played through the credits. I was able to see the credits. It was just placeholder stuff from Guitar Hero 5. That the credits go on for forever. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of names that are in the credits for helping in one way or another. And with all the different games that came out, there were so many different studios too. Activision was the big guy up on top during the Neversoft era. You had Neversoft, you had Underground Development, you had Beanox, you had other smaller studios doing DLC stuff. It became a huge machine.
Vicarious, Freestyle Games.
Vicarious, doing all the
network
of Budcat for ports and stuff.
Yeah, Budcat, they were good. They kind of did the PS2 stuff, right?
Yeah,
as well.
PS2 ports, all the PS2 ports. I remember the
Aspire with the PC.
Aspire to PC, and that was an interesting port.
Aspire, yes.
Aspire.
They definitely made versions of Guitar Hero for PC.
Hey, no, we got to give them credit though, because that's what kept us alive for many years. GH3 PC, because that was the most easy way for the hardcore people to put their own really hard songs into the game in a more accessible way, more easier than burning a disc for your PS2 on Guitar Hero 2. And in between the last Guitar Hero before Guitar Hero Live, that 4 or 5 year period, that's all we really had. we had to make our own fun. And the Guitar Hero Live came out, and it was a game. It had 6 frets, and it didn't really catch on as some might have hoped it would. So then we kept on doing our own thing, and now we have games like Clone Hero, and we have games like Yarg that are still carrying that torch. Fan made. It's really interesting how it turned that way.
Aspire was an external studio that also published the game, right? So, but back in those days, PC was just no one had PC discs. Especially for this kind of thing. But Aspire, these folks that always find opportunity and stuff, and they took that on. And I think I remember working with Ted and those guys. We had the Explorer. They used the Explorer, the Xbox Explorer for this, for Mac and PC and stuff. Because we really couldn't support them really too much, and I don't think Neversoft supported them that much. You said, "Well, here's some code. Let's see what you can do," kind of thing. The focus was on the focus, which was the console stuff. So, I think they did a decent job in getting it out. It just really wasn't in sync because it was an external publishing deal for, platforms that no one really cared about internally, in a sense. There wasn't a business there from a massive scale, in a sense. So they had to kind of figure a bunch of stuff out, which, as you know, it's not easy when you're not living and breathing that stuff.
Yeah. And I must say, I probably underestimated the impact that would have, because I think, always imagined Guitar Hero as a living room experience, right? You play with your friends sitting around a couch. So we kind of saw it as a console game. And then when somebody said, let's do originally Mac and PC, we're like, whatever. I don't think people are going to sit in front of a PC playing this game. But
who would do that? Not me.
Who would do that? That's crazy.
Would do with that. And it was like, oh my god, if I go back and I would like realize what fans could do when you could get it onto a PC platform. Because I think that's how we originally envisioned Guitar Hero, was like it's sitting around in a couch in a living room playing this game. And in my mind, that didn't involve a PC.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, we just, we took it way too seriously, like, honestly, like, and it's funny because, you've got a couple of guitars sitting in the background. I noticed one of them is the kiosk version of the World Tour guitar, or at least it has the faceplate that came, and, for those watching who don't know, very simple, kiosk guitars are what video game stores got, or like for like demo units and stuff like that, like in demo units. And so during the Guitar Hero 3 PC days, people were actively seeking out kiosk guitars because the whole idea was they're wired, so I can hit the notes faster. It will pick up my inputs faster, and that's why we wanted them so bad, because it was like, oh my god, I can't hit this section on my wireless Les Paul, but I can do it on a wired Les Paul. You know?
And here's the thing:
or like an Explorer.
You can't get the wired Les Paul anywhere other than the kiosk version, which was never sold to consumers. It was only given to like GameStops and Best Buys and WalMarts and Targets. Yeah. And the fact that so many of them still survived and made it out of stores, many of them unused, it boggles my mind. I have a Guitar Hero 2 demo kit right there. Don't know why that was never set up in a video game store. I think that went to Best Buy. There's a sheet in there that said, "Hey, dear Best Buy, whatever the hell," and then Guitar Hero 3 over there. I don't know why. But it did, and I'm glad it's there because it's a great collectible item.
My GH31 also wasn't used. It actually has the original label on it from the plane it was flying on. It was going to
That's cool.
Whatever. What's the is it in Minneapolis, the airport, Minnesota?
Oh yeah, MSP.
Yeah, so it was going.
Bring it home, bro. I'm in Minnesota.
No,
Bring it.
You can't have that.
It's in Canada.
It's mine.
Just because I have a moose in my name doesn't mean I'm from Canada. Yeah. Okay, we have moose in Minnesota too.
He's close though. He's close.
Yeah.
I'm very close.
What you guys are doing with that is, you remember that line in Good Will Hunting where the math professor points to Matt Damon and goes, "There's maybe 5 people in the world who can tell the difference between you and me." Right, in terms of their math ability, and like I think even to most expert level players, they couldn't tell the difference between a wired and a wireless controller the way you guys could, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
I remember a tournament that I did when I was a kid, and they needed my help calibrating the setups, and the guy that I was playing was just there on a bye, and so the round was just gonna come and go, but he was just there to have fun anyway. And so I was like calibrating the setup, and I was like, that's like 5 or 10 milliseconds off. And the guy next to me was just like, I don't even know how you could tell that. Yeah. I just kind of play the notes and I just, have fun. That's crazy. So it just reminded me of that.
Yeah. And that was what, what Lee was talking about earlier. Raul and Mark were the only people in the office who could tell that kind of stuff that you guys could tell. So when they were playing, they never played with a wireless guitar.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
One of us.
One of us.
Awesome.
I'm guessing that's why Raul got a shout out in the Cracked post recently.
Legend.
About the doohickey.
Legend. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Like he was a really cool dude.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know we're still relatively young. I mean, me and Charles are old, but we're not that old, But I think we've lost some folks along the way, and spoke to like Kaz and sort of Steve about that. So at one point I was thinking we'd do this guitar, we'd call it the Renteria guitar or something, But I don't know if we need to do. Well, we should do that. I don't know, but. I think when you look back, this whole sort of experience with the doohickey, and other stuff that we've been looking at, it does bring back this flood of memories, because you kind of have to go back to go forward, you know what I mean, with this stuff, and whilst sort of digging back and thinking about the past, and then obviously. Doing my research or our research into, community and the hardcore community, these memories of Raoul and Mark just kept sort of popping up, especially when they were both so, sometimes you go, oh, come on, man, it's not that bad. And they'll be going, no, it's really bad. And we're saying, I can't see what the problem is, but do you know what I mean? But of course they would hammer home that, and also same with some of the software stuff, they'll be going, this stuff's screwed. And they would keep, and then you'd go back to they're saying, nah, they don't know what they're talking about, and of course they do, and it gets solved. But that's how that's why he sort of came up, and of course, he did pass away way too early, and even after he left, he was we're still in contact, and I think he was working with you for a while there, Charles, right?
Yeah, he was still yeah, and then he just kind of abruptly he had a medical issue and just probably passed away. But but I think that was always like my insight. Like I could play expert level, but I could not do what you guys do, and so there was just parts of it where we needed somebody to guide us through. Like, hey, this is this is what the top 0.1% are going to do with this piece of hardware, and we need to fix this. And you're like, well.
Yeah, it really makes sense why Guitar Hero guitars always had such an edge over what Harmonix decided to do with their own hardware, because I think that Harmonix kind of analyzed a lot of complaints about the strum bar and the buttons are too loud, right? And so they went with the mushy, reed switch strum bar. They went with the frets that are more like a keycap style that click in and have a little metal bar to stabilize it. And Guitar Hero has always been the choice. RedOctane stuff has always been the choice for high level play, Whereas you can get good with the Rock Band guitar, but it's certainly not preferable.
It's not many people do that.
Not many people do that at all.
And after the Riffmasters come out, people were really excited because it was oh my god, we're getting a new guitar. I mean, we were excited because it was
because it's exciting. It's the first new one in almost a decade. I mean, it's we're back.
Yeah.
But
you have to look at it from the perspective of what if this opens the door to something? And evidently it has. Right?
It apparently has. I mean,
allegedly has.
There's a reason why this thing is still in use today. This guitar was made in 2007. It's 17 years old. I still use it daily. Mind you, the internals are way different. We've ripped out all the old stuff that you guys worked so hard on, and we did our own stuff. Okay, we have some excellent people.
Anyway, so
we have excellent people now in the community that redo all this shit. Sandtroller, Sanjay
pogo
is the big
pins,
one.
Man. Yeah. Those damn pogo pins. What a mess.
What's the story there? Why'd you do that to us?
Well, I'm sure it made sense.
Actually, there's a story about pogo pins. Although they only really sort of were there for an iteration, we had designed, with a good partner, a module for these guitars, which was solid, had lots of testing, and we had several factories. Not going to name factories, and one of the factories, who'd done a lot of volume, especially would have been on your PS3 and your Xbox guitars in particular. Decided that they were going to save a few cents and make their own, of which we didn't authorize that, of course. But we caught it. But of course, we caught it when the whole thing was they were coming out of the factory, kind of thing.
We haven't made that many yet, right?
No. There was a lot, and you know the story, Charles. And obviously, Jared went in and said, "Hey, what the hell's going on here?" And they went, "Oh, no, it's no problem. We bought the pins. The pins are the same pins. We bought it from the pin supplier directly." You went, "Well, it's not the pins. It's the frickin' module. You've kind of made your own tooling for this module, and it's precision tooling. So it was a bit of a joke, really. So
you mean to tell me that all the frustrations that we've had all these years was really not ever meant to happen? It was the factory's mistake of thinking that they could save some money by making their own pogo pins.
It's a cost-cutting measure.
And over the years, back in those days, they try little tricks. Some of them, but our other partner, who had done the Wii and some of the PS guitars, had been by the book, and our issues with those were very negligible. There was hardly any actually. It was all on this. It was all on these other things. So I mean, it happens. But again, even now, I'd imagine over 20 years, these things would be a bit more not as robust as they were before.
Well, you know, they, like a lot of these guitars you get secondhand, especially like even the Wii ones, even if they worked better originally, you know, like they've had the pins sitting on the pads for all these years. There's a bunch of pressure on these copper pads. It's a 1. I think it might actually be a 1.2 millimeter PCB. Like it's not very thick. Those copper pads can get dented really easy. So of course it's gonna break. They're 20 years old.
Yeah.
You know.
So you're seeing something slightly different now than what was at the very beginning, but ultimately, you know, we kind of decided to go away from that after that. I mean, I know it's on the doohickey, but it's different.
Yeah, it's different nowadays.
No, I can tell it's I can tell it's engineered. I mean, first of all, the first thing I noticed when I got this is that the pads are recessed, so they're not just sticking like bare out.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that will help a lot with stabilization of keeping the pins on contact for good. And you probably really ironed out the spring pressure in the pins as well.
Yeah.
You know, to make contact. So all that stuff's been figured out, right?
No, pogo pins are like evil by default.
I will give you some inside information on our new guitar. There's no pogo pins in the new guitar.
Oh, no pogo pins on the guitar. Let's fucking go.
My heart. Okay.
Wait, does the neck come off? You know, does it fold?
I don't think he's gonna tell us that.
Does it fold?
Question. What's the neck situation like? What's the button? What's the fret situations? You know what about
are
the
those
strum
Explorer
bar?
buttons?
Tell us everything about it. Tell us everything about it.
It is Explorer buttons. They're Explorer inspired.
They're square rectangles.
Let's say inspired. Yeah, let's not say they're Explorer.
They're square.
Oh yeah,
No,
we
I
can't
mean
say Explorer, right?
I mean the teaser looked great though. I think first of all, like I was shocked that Jake was in it. I wasn't expecting that. That was
It's such an honor to see myself up there. You know.
Yeah. That was an awesome moment.
Yeah, we got the image rights through his agent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Well, really, it was. Which way should I be pointed? That way, Alec. That was our conversation. And somehow we were always playing a game of television or a telephone. Lee would talk to Alec. Alec would be like, "Hey, you need to do this." Okay, and then it would go through the chain of command to get that working. Sorry, I gotta break the immersion. I knew that I was gonna be in the damn trailer, guys. I was lying the whole time. I was playing it up. I couldn't tell you earlier.
But none of us had any idea as to what the teaser was going to look like. So
that's the point. I mean, I know the good thing is that you don't actually want to know, right? So
no,
you have the real reaction.
I mean, because it kind of spoils it, I guess, right? So there's little things we ask and stuff, but we felt that we wanted a community sort of lead, and it was like looking for bits of footage and stuff, you know. And we found a couple of things with the moose there that was kind of interesting.
The moose.
Yeah, the moose.
Time to rebrand, buddy.
Hey, that should be the guitar name, the Moose.
The moose.
Okay, buddy.
That one's free.
Settle down a little bit. Settle down.
All right.
All right.
No. Hold on.
You know,
you might
the
be cooking
theme-
here.
Yeah,
You might be cooking here. What if we got different the moose, the Paradise, the 760 customization options?
Hey, that'd be cool.
Exactly. I think there's plenty of stuff to come. That's for sure.
Well, Lee, I don't know if you have it on hand, but I did send you something, right? You do have something from me.
Oh, this thing.
Haha.
Surprise,
RedOctane.
guys.
Yeah.
So I sent Lee a guitar. I obviously haven't told people that until now because we were waiting for this. But it's crazy because it's a really full circle moment because when I started modding these guitars like almost over 5 years ago at this point, it was all because I was working a job. I didn't like school. I got an associate's degree in general studies, and it's I really struggled with school, and so I didn't know what to do, and so I didn't have a resume. I was friends with somebody who owned a dog grooming place, and I was bathing dogs, right? And so I was in a call with Alec and a bunch of our friends one night, and I was just venting about I hate this job. My boss wasn't very nice. It was a very high stress environment. Believe it or not, dogs can be really, really stressful. It's tough. But Alec was like, you've been going to all those thrift stores and buying all these old guitars. Why don't you just clean them up and there's a little mod that we do on the membrane, so the rubber membrane pad and the frets where you cut some material off of them to kind of just break them in immediately. obviously not a great idea if you don't know what you're doing because you'll just rip off the pad. But I knew what
Not
I
great
was
for
doing 'cause
longevity
I had
either.
Yeah,
No,
I had done
absolutely
it.
not.
I had done it a ton at this point, so I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, and I started doing that, and I was making more money than I was working at this part-time job, and I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this, and COVID hit, and like I was like, oh, now I can't go to thrift stores and buy guitars, like I'm screwed, but I linked up with these two guys in the community called Katana and Fire Exit Man, and kind of our COVID project was just like, over the years, people had like tried to do the concept of like putting mechanical key switches in these old guitars, right? And led to mixed results. A lot of the time, you had to take all the back supports out of the neck that would normally, keep the PCB held down because these full size keyboard switches are way too tall. You had to take material out of the frets with like a CNC mill or whatever, huge, or manually sand it off for like 5 hours.
I did that so many guitars of mine, dude. I spent hours sanding down frets.
Thanks.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
Yeah,
Never again.
Sorry to hear. I did not want to do that.
Yeah,
As I found out that people were doing that, I was like, fuck that, dude. No way.
Sandpaper and fret
thanks.
for hours.
No shot.
Take you forever. So, we stumbled upon the fact that, like, as time has gone on, like, more keyboard switches have been made, and they make low-profile switches now. They're, like, they have a much lower stem, and so we were able to kind of cobble something together on a PCB where you can mount in these 5 low-profile switches, and you just, like the Wii guitar was, like, the first choice because around this time, this adapter called the RAFnet adapter came out. Wii guitars were, believe it or not, like, the hot shit. Like, everybody wanted Wii guitars. It was a phenomenon. And
that's crazy, man.
They're
the most broken pieces of shit now, and it's still. It was like everybody was looking for them because they were fucking busted. Like, you could flick the strum bar and it would do like 5 or 6 strums in one flick. The buttons felt terrible, but then you cut them up and they felt weightless.
Amazing.
And then you could slap your hand on the keys and it would do 1,000 inputs. Not even kidding. And that
somehow
like
these guitars getting old and wearing down was a benefit to some players. Like super high end stuff.
So we got these switches in there, and like I got my first 3D printer. I have a ton now. There's more in another room, and like just again this COVID project because like we were all like in New York, we were in lockdown, right? Like you couldn't go out, so like I'm just sitting every day with these two guys trying to figure this stuff out, and like we eventually got something together where like we made these new printable frets and we got them to work on the switches, and like I made this guitar for Alec, and it was just a little Arduino Pro Micro with like all these wires like very I was just learning how to solder at this point, so like very very shoddily wired up, like really cobbled together, but then he made a video on it, and all of a sudden people were like, I want this thing for myself, and I'm getting all of these inquiries, and I'm like but it's not really that good though, like it's kind of a piece of shit, like it's just wired together, like and like it's got new strum switches, but they're in a 3D printed bracket, and if you strum on it too hard, like the bracket breaks, and like all these problems. And like the obvious solution is like, oh, we need to make more PCBs. Like in modern times, you can just go on like PCBWay or JLC PCB and just order whatever the hell you want. Like they'll make it for you. Like you didn't have that back in the day. You had to be a corporation or a company, like not an individual, and you had to have high volume for them to make you anything at all. But times have changed, and so I was just making this stuff and people wanted it, and I started selling them and people bought them, and that's what I've been doing for like the past several years, and so like it's ironic that like Guitar Hero gave us like all occupations. So like Alec always knew that he was going to be a content creator, right, with Guitar Hero, and he uploaded to YouTube for years, and then he had some viral videos that blew up, and he became partnered on Twitch, and then Jason worked in the games industry, and he helped run and participated in Guitar Hero tournaments, and on a whim, he was just like, let me just try streaming Phase Shift on Twitch, and people liked it, and then Jake has been uploading his full combos in every single Guitar Hero Rock Band game on YouTube since like the dawn of time. This guy's been uploading forever, for a long time. So,
I was 11 years old when I uploaded my first video on YouTube. I'm 27.
There you go.
Crazy.
What's up, Unc?
That's wild.
Hey, you're Unc too. You're uploading as long as I have.
Bro, you got a kid. You have a child.
It wasn't the same account, right? We aren't just compromising your account security
Of
by
course
saying
not, no.
that. Right?
Oh, sorry, I was 13. My bad. I was 13.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
13
yeah,
as well,
just making-
for sure.
Making sure.
My old account's gone. But the point I'm trying to drive at is that, like, you know, these guitars in these games, like, it gave us all occupations, and, like, it's not something that I expected to happen in my life, that, like, I'm gonna be sitting here with these bins of guitars, and it's like, I'm so burnt out, man. You know, I've been working on these RedOctane guitars for years, and I'm sitting here, I'm looking at these things, I'm like, I don't want to do this, you know, and, like, so many advancements have been made, you know, like, you have, like,
That's literally my
people-
first Guitar Hero guitar. That's the one.
What, the SG?
You have your
Yeah,
original one
yeah.
still, huh?
Nice.
I had to clean it up. I
I wish.
may have put new parts inside of it, but that's the first one. It's still a Theseus version of it, but, you know.
I love the SG. I think the SG was a really good first guitar. Like, I really like
Yeah,
it.
seriously.
Yeah.
Like most SGs that you can go buy nowadays, even though they're almost 20 years old, they almost all work just fine.
They work
Nothing's
really well,
wrong.
believe it or not.
They're-
They've held up because you open those things up, there's nothing in those things.
They're so simple.
There's
Yeah,
nothing
yeah,
there.
yeah.
But it worked. You know, it worked really well. And, like, you know, I know Lee, you had done like an interview a long time ago talking about Guitar Hero 3 and, like, what you guys were going to do differently for the new guitar, and you were saying, like, oh, you know, we're going to make it look like less Fisher Price, and, you know, like, take away, like, the solid colors and stuff. And
Yep.
I can see why you thought that way back then, but I look back on it now and I actually really like the solid colors. Like, I could take both. I
Yeah.
could take either or, you know?
Well, I think at the we've dealt with that Fisher Price thing many times. Yeah, like, you know, straight out the gate when we were acquired by Activision, it was a thing, you know, and, you know, it's always dangerous when you get someone somewhere in a suit trying to do your design for you, right? So, we kind of huddled around and said, okay, how can we keep it like, you know, the fret's the same, but, you know, so we came up with this double injected sort of ring, you know, that still had those core colors, which I think worked pretty well. So it was less Fisher Price in that sense. So that's really the reason for that. And then, of course, later on, when you were well gone by then, Charles, when someone had a great idea to reboot Guitar Hero, even those were, you know, those frets were considered Fisher Price as well. So it was like the same thing, like, you know, I ain't going into that.
Even the people who made Guitar Hero Live were like, yeah, let's move past it.
But
Yeah.
you know what?
Yeah.
Hold on. I do want to go into GH Live because
Oh,
of
boy.
all the four
Oh,
of
you're
us.
the biggest fan. You're the biggest fan, man.
Of the four of us, I was the one that did the full game speed run. I was the one that, you know, like, kept making it my main content back when GH
That kicked
Live
off
was a
your
thing.
Twitch career.
It did.
It really did.
It really
It-
did.
Yeah.
It helped me. I was the second partnered GH streamer right behind UCOG, and I got it like a week or so after him, right? So it was one of those things where GH Live's a huge part of why I was able to make this
Yeah.
into a career. That being said, I've got so many issues with the game myself, not just the microtransactions, but the
Mhm.
way they handled the community. I actually applied to work with that team because I had a lot of things that I wanted to do with competitive side. I've been wanting to do this literally since my life changed thanks to competitive Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
But within the first month of that game being out, their community manager left and was never replaced on the title. So many other small little things that ended up popping up and made Guitar Hero Live a bad experience for the community. You've alluded to this a few times in the interview right now already, Lee, but it feels like Guitar Hero Live wasn't the best experience on your guys' side. Can you talk about how it felt to change your iconic 5-fret guitar from the 5 colors to black and white, from the 5 frets to 2 rows of 3, where you were saying earlier at the beginning, 3 notes was the original concept, right? So how did it feel switching from what worked for so many years to this new idea, which again kind of goes back to the middle of the interview where the executive was saying, you got to innovate, got to innovate, got to innovate. How did it feel on your side?
I think, yeah, I mean, if I'd sort of go back to that time, you know, we had come off of Guitar Hero was done, you know, it was put on hiatus, and our team was then yeah, we were on Skylanders. In fact, we was on Skylanders whilst we was at the tail end of Guitar Hero anyway, kind of doing very early stuff on that. So, I mean, that in itself was actually a massive program. Skylanders, I mean, there was hundreds of millions of RFID toys that we had to freaking make and stuff. And then at some point, of course, there was, it's like anything, Activision was changing, growing, you know, and obviously the company was also kind of evolving itself. Like, you know, of course, they'd done the thing with Vivendi, so there was they had Blizzard over here, you know, Call of Duty was going at gangbusters, and Skylanders was going crazy and all this stuff. And there was a change in management. I think one of the guy who was running Activision Publishing when we were acquired was a guy called Mike Griffiths. And Charles knows him very well. You know, and you know, very, very supportive and very solid operator, like, you know. So he was sort of no longer there anymore. He'd sort of moved up to the board level and then, you know, went off. And so there was a change. It was the modern change, like, you know, new, and of course with that came let's reboot Guitar Hero. You know, and I think that was, it's just interesting for, you know, but it's just like, okay, great. The good thing was that Freestyle was sort of given the project to look at, which was good because we worked with them on DJ Hero. So, you know, we had a good working relationship with those guys, and they were a really fun studio to work with and quite collaborative. But very quickly, I think, you know, it was the whole, let's make something different, let's do this, let's, you know, and I get it. I totally get it that, of course, this massive juggernaut crashed and burned in a sense. So if you're going to try and do something, but I just found it odd that kind of wasn't really Guitar Hero. I sort of was struggling a bit with like, but it's not really Guitar Hero.
Right.
But it is Guitar Hero. But it isn't really Guitar Hero. Do you know what I mean? And
I do. I've said for
and
years that if you had the name Guitar Hero even removed from it, if you even just changed the name, I think it would have been received better because it wasn't Guitar Hero.
So I think respectfully, the game was okay. Like, you know, I mean, but the whole fret thing was, you know, I just had this thing that isn't Guitar Hero. So, but, you know, look, we have a job to do and got to be professional and we've got to work together. So decisions get made and away you go. Like, you know, and I think to your point where the community very quickly, the community manager stalling was the age old thing, you know, a lot of money went into it. It came out, it didn't perform, start cutting costs, right? That's
sell a building.
Yeah,
do that.
But you know what I mean. So it's just like, well, yeah, they know. I guess they know fairly quickly, and of course they've had some experience with that before. So, yeah. So I mean, like again, when you've kind of been developing this, you know, from the early Charles days, you know, with multiple teams. And then it sort of comes back in that form. I guess that's the hard thing. But you know, at the time, yeah, big programs going on with Skylands and stuff. So you know, I didn't lose mega sleep over it. I just had my opinions, you know, and you know, some people love the game. The one thing I liked about it still is that from a guitar perspective, the core sort of body and the system in a sense was one guitar for all. So we just had dongles and they were literally the same guitar. There was no.
That is cool.
Yeah, it was a good idea.
Yeah, and you could, you know, you could BLE them to, you know, Apple TVs and stuff. I mean, no one really played on Apple TV, but it's still on my Apple TV downstairs.
Like
is it really?
Lee is one of the 5 people, probably.
Yeah,
one of the 3.
But I think when you know, it's really interesting because Charles was talking about the very, very early days, of just scrimping and scraping with ideas, and this came from one of those ideas, right?
Sure.
And what that means as you build that through, very different experience to if you start again and you're in an organization that's looking for a home run, like, with GH Live, for example. And that kind of brings you back to kind of not ask, why are you goofing around with all this stuff? When there's so much, in our organization, we've got loads of different things. And for my idea, it kind of, when we look back at the community, not your community, I mean, it's everyone's community. And of course, the things that were happening with Fortnite Festival, and we'd looked at Yarg and Clone Hero. Brian's always delving into that stuff.
That dude loves Yarg.
It was, we kind of played around for a year, more than a year and a half of, wouldn't it be cool to come back into this? But where's the interjection point? I believe that there is a market for this. There's fans of this. The mechanic's great. The core mechanic of this game is great. It's timeless. It's just, it's not like, well, let's go and raise hundreds of millions, go and spend 50 million on developing the game and go all in and fail, because it will. How do we, is there a way of coming in at the right level and working it that way, in a sense? And that's where the crack thing came from. We'd cracked was an incubation thing that we had, and our core team, what can we, how can we make things differently, and we went after a part of the market that was, people said we were crazy, because why would you make a controller for a Switch after how many years the Switch has been out? There's going to be a new one. So, well, there's an install base and there's a need. So let's try and make the best thing we can make in our timeline and see if people like it. And of course they liked it. And Cracked is a very community-led sort of collectible kind of thing that we started up. And that's where we started to, and there could be some links into some of the rhythm stuff here. How do we want to get involved with that? And we do our research. Of course, I wanted to make a game. Straight out, let's just make a game. And then folks like Tim Clark were like, yeah, you don't need to make a game yet. Why don't we just make a guitar? I'm like, well, do people really want a guitar? He said, yeah, I think so. There's people out there, these
Yes.
Clone Hero things, this Yarg
Yes,
thing,
we do.
bigger than you think. Sure, it's a community-based thing, but there's some real people still playing this stuff. I don't know.
Real quick, I want to interject something. Clone Hero is like, we in our community see Clone Hero for, what it is, and then we see the people that around us play it.
Yeah.
There's a whole group of like complete casuals that never played Guitar Hero, but are introduced to Clone Hero through just being online, watching Alex videos that have 40 million views or whatever. Like, oh, Guitar Hero? I didn't my dad play that or whatever? Stuff like that.
Yeah. But we started to see that.
It's deceptively large.
When we started to look back into the community, we saw this. There was a lot of sort of stuff there. I was like, okay. Still want to make a game.
People care about this still?
Yeah, I still want to make a game. I still want to make a game. And I was told to, no, don't do it. Let's think about this more. So we started playing around with some guitar stuff, like in CAD and ideas and stuff. But with just general, again, skunkworks type of stuff, the stuff that we were used to. And then this time last year, the festival thing came. I think it was the holidays there. That's I was just like, go on in, I'm gonna have a go. Let's get in there. I used to hate going in Fortnite because it was like a massive update every time I went on there, right? So to wait like 20 minutes or half an hour.
Relatable.
By that time my mind's onto something else, like making a cup of tea or something. So fired it up, and I was just like, "Oh, this looks really cool." And they're like, "Oh my god, I'm trying to play with this controller like this." And okay, let me try on keyboards. And I'm like, "Oh god." Ugh. And
Huh.
I kind of looked at this NeoS, which we were developing for Cracked anyway, and the NeoS had this port at the bottom, and the reason it was that way was so we could expand into other devices. It wasn't anything like this. It might have been an arcade stick, or it could have been anything it plugged into. And I just took it and literally like this thing here. I just put my hand to it like this, held it like that, and did this, and took about 3 or 4 different pictures.
A little reminiscent of something.
Sent it straight over
Very similar.
On WeChat to my friend Jared, one of my partners in crimes for many years, and said, "What's this?" And he went, "DS?" And kinda. I said, "Kinda, but better." And we was on, it said it was on sort of holiday break, and within sort of 48 hours, I had a CAD prototype and did a quick 3D print and went, "Oh, this is all right." And then we got back in January, and I was like, "Hey, I've got an idea." And everyone's like, "Oh, that's cool. What about the real guitar though?" And I was like,
It was always there. It's like, well, yeah, that's cool, but also, when's the big thing?
Yeah. So they're always tied in a sense, right? There's always that thing. And then, of course, we had, the real NeoS was coming out, and I said, "Okay, well, let's get that out." And then, and we started working on that. And the reason it was a little bit longer was just because we have a working relationship with Epic anyway. And I showed it to those folks, and they were like, "Oh, that's really cool." And it kind of went from there. So, the back end of that, of course, we just had to get everything in place so it could be branded with Epic and sort of work with them on that, because I think it gives, I mean, in reality, it is for that. Sure, you can play it on the Yarg and the other games and stuff.
Oh yeah.
For the masses, it's something that I think gives people, the masses it's better than playing it on a controller. It just is like a regular controller, right?
Couldn't agree more.
More immersive.
I believe it is anyway.
More immersive for sure.
Yeah, so that's how that came. And then, of course, at the same time, once Jared gets going, and Tim, on the dev side, it was, we're doing a guitar. Stop talking about a game. We'll talk about a game, but we're doing a guitar anyway. Let's not connect the two. If we make a game and we got a guitar, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, it means
Very
a lot
true.
that you think that just a solo guitar would be worthwhile to pursue without having a game to go along with it, because there's already all these other games out there. You got Colonial, you got Yarg, you got Fortnite Festival.
And you know what? I think as soon as we started to look deeper into these communities and what people were playing, and of course looking at festival as well, you think, well, okay, there's a core market here, and you've got a lot of engagement, a lot of fans that still like this stuff. So I think we have a place. If we do what we know what we can do, I think we got a place. And people have been, "Oh, what about the other guitars?" Fine, they make a guitar, and I'm sure they're really proud of the guitar, and that they're in the market and they've done very well with it, and great, more the better, right? I mean,
Yeah, more options is always good.
I mean, it gives people options, and some people like that. Some people like that Rock Band set, like guitar set in a sense, and
Yeah, like it's
and that's
quieter.
great.
The neck folds. Like conceptually, it's not a bad idea. The opening the thing up is a nightmare, but
Yeah, but that's not. You're not meant to open it up.
Exactly.
Right?
I did like the first day I got mine, I was like, all right, I'm opening this thing up, and I'm looking at it, I'm like they went with a ribbon cable. You got to be kidding me! Like this, like it's like folded in 20 different directions and stuff. It's around like but they had to do what they had to do to get the folding mechanism to work. I get it.
Yeah. I think no, I mean, I don't and even back in the day, Charles, we didn't really emphasize too much on what Harmonix were doing, especially from a hardware perspective, because we were so busy focused on our own stuff. But they've done a great job. They built a big audience, and a great team there. Sometimes higher up the channel, we'd have people going, find out what's happening there, and they'd have my normal answer: find out yourself.
Smart.
Very nice.
But again, that was because we haven't got time to be scuffling around the industry trying to find out secrets of others. We just want to crack on and do our own thing. So
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I think Riffmaster's been great, to be honest. I mean, I think it's also so that there is a market there, and I think
Yeah,
this
they proved that
need
for sure.
very well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good on them. Yeah.
True.
It's been amazing for me to see, because I've, stepped away, as Lee said a while back. But the last 10 years, really, the community has carried forward, right, rhythm games.
Yep.
And in amazing ways. Like, you had to have a group of people who were building open source software. You had to have a group of people like you guys who were building the hardware, right, trying to keep hardware controllers alive and
Well, it's
working.
amazing what you can do now because, again, like being able to order PCBs and stuff, but, Raspberry Pi put out this Pi Pico and this RP2040 chip, and, like, it's just very versatile, and we're very fortunate to have community member Sanjay900 who made Sandtroller, who, like, I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for this guy. Like, he made the software that I put on my guitar, and it's like, the model that we have now is that you can pay a license if you sell commercially, so you can get, like, there's a standard version of the tool for enthusiasts who want to flash firmware on their own guitars, and then there's a seller tool that, I have a consistent pinout on whatever boards I have and everything that go to GPIO pins, and so I have pre-built configurations for people to flash on, like, the body model that they have. Like, oh, you have a Wii Les Paul, flash this firmware. You have a PlayStation / Xbox 360 Les Paul, flash this firmware, and so on. And so it's like, did you really, like, expect people to kind of take your old hardware and be like, I'm gonna fix it, like.
Yeah.
How's it feel to see your creation and see what other people have done with it and say, like,
reborn,
oh, we can make it better,
Yeah.
Well,
How's it feel?
yeah. Oh, go on, Karen. Well, I mean,
Okay.
I think it's like anything. I mean, we are getting up for 20 years now. I mean, between 15 and 20 years. So I think it's amazing that these things are being, because after 20 years, I mean, just in a regular set, they're going to be a bit crusty, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. But to actually have people then go and start off by just cleaning them out and reconfiguring them, and then actually doing some sort of development around, improving them into the modern times, I think that's superb. Like, but it also shows the need, right? The market need.
It does.
And
Absolutely.
you folks and there's hundreds, maybe thousands of folks who play this seriously. That's a great service for them, So I'm glad our carcasses can still be used there, because I think
Well, they're great
was,
carcasses. I mean, it sounds a little morbid, right?
Yeah, people have been trying to, like, make their own carcass, in a sense. They want to 3D print their own bodies for their guitars. You just can't compare. You just can't compare to the old RedOctane bodies. It's just a different type of thing. Just feels way better to use an old official guitar.
And they're injection molded too. I mean, you 3D print something in PLA, and, like, you can print, like, a whole guitar body or whatever. But, like, people really underestimate, like, why ABS is used in injection molding, because it's one of the most versatile plastics. It has high temperature, like, it has a very high glass transition rate, high temperature resistance. Like, like the pellets are, easily obtainable. Like, and then you have 3D printing where, like, PLA is obviously, like, the most accessible material, but it has a very low glass transition rate. It's very brittle, like, you can leave. I tell people, I'm like, do not leave my guitars in a hot car, because your frets won't work anymore. They will warp under the heat. and then when you put them into a room temperature environment, they will expand. So yeah, that really for me is why all these people over the years like we need new guitars. Like a community member like 760, why don't you make new guitars? And I'm like, you know how much injection molding and tooling costs, my guy? Like, I ain't doing that. Like, that's not happening. Like, I would need, like, at least, like, $1 million before I did that. At least at the minimum,
not viable. Like, let the craft guy do it instead.
Yeah, exactly. Let the craft guy do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Lily do it.
And I think to your point, the question is that, some folks saying, why are you even doing this? Like, but as I said before, it's like, well, this is a guitar controller. This is a doohickey. Whatever you want to call it, like it's. If you look at other accessory businesses and stuff, they have all these different things. 10 different headsets, blah 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 blah. And when you kind of do the math in like there's like 250 different headset out there in the marketplace, yada yada yada. It's just like, well, there isn't that many guitars in the marketplace. That sure, there's a smaller audience, right, at the moment, right?
At the moment,
but
definitely niche.
If you make quality product with feedback from the key people, like we always did, just the key people are different now.
I do think that is like one of the keys is that the community has carried this genre forward for so many years that I think anything going forward, you kind of have to have a collaboration in some way, right? Like with the community and the people that are going to build either hardware or software are going to be able to tell each other like what's happening, the way that you guys are, in a way that we couldn't do, when we were starting. Like what you guys have done with it in terms of like not just building the hardware, but like sort of evangelizing it, right? Through social media, that kind of stuff, just like to me is unimaginable. Like when we were started. And I think if you're going to build something, like Cracked is going to build, then you have to have all those parts of the community kind of engaged in it.
Well, it's true. That's why I had Alec. Like Alec has been my guinea pig for years. Like whenever I had something new that I did on guitars, I'm like, I send it to Alec. I'm like, all right, try this. And he gets it. I'm like, did I cook? Did I do it? Does it feel good? Like
I'm your new guinea pig. He just told me, hey, go buy a 3D printer. It's $200.
Yeah, so he did.
I'm like, okay, I'll buy a 3D printer.
I was like, Jake, you're a pretty technical guy. I'm like, why have me 3D print everything that you want when you could just do it yourself?
Yeah, I'll just give you the file and say, hey, test this for me real quick. Print it out, and now I can do it. Haven't even fired the thing up yet. Haven't printed anything yet, but I have it. I'm ready to go whenever he has something for me to try.
But that's why I'm really glad that like that's like clearly the way you guys always ran things, because it is really important to have that. Like I don't think that I it does help the fact that like I am like a high level player myself, but Alec is higher level than me, and so for a lot of things I kind of saw him, I'm like, well, I can't do this, but like, if he can do this, then it's good, and then he can do certain things. I'm like, okay, so it must be good. And so having that aspect of like these, really talented players, like, either telling you like, oh man, this is awesome, or telling you like, nah man, doesn't feel right. One of the biggest issues with the mechanical frets, these key switches, is that they have a much longer travel distance than like a rubber membrane pad, so the frets would kind of sink in. And so one of the big problems with that is if you make the frets stick out too much and then sink in, like stick out a lot and then sink in, when you slide from green to red in high level play, going from like first to second position, your finger can get caught in that motion.
Yeah.
And so that was a big that was a big thing that I had to deal with, is like figuring out like like how do I make it easier, and it's like
it's especially true if you do it. Hold on, I'm going to zoom in. It's especially true if you do what I do on my guitars, and that is sand off the frets in between the fret buttons, the ridges. It makes it much easier to slide that way. But if the fret buttons are a bit taller and they stick out, your finger can kind of get stuck there on that slide. But I prefer it not having those ridges in the way, because it makes sliding a whole lot easier.
Yeah, so just stuff like that, I feel like, I feel like I inadvertently copied you guys without even knowing that's what you did.
Yeah, it's a very similar sort of approach. It's like, hey, let's talk to people who know.
But as you learned from, creating RedOctane and, having this huge success, like it's a working formula, like it works really well.
and I think when you're doing something like this, you do, again, there'll be things that we utilize in this new guitar that kind of utilizes new technology and new ways of doing things, but not at the detrimental of what the look and feel of this thing is, because that's what's important, right? So
Absolutely.
to your point,
I
of
have
course,
faith.
yeah, and, on your mechanical fret, that's an interesting point, because you are correct. If you're building a neck, from a structure perspective, and you're just buying off the shelf parts like that aren't designed for this, they're designed for something
Not at
else.
all.
And, if you want to do something on a mass scale and you want to utilize both things, and you kind of have to build something.
I've explained
you
that.
have to build,
yeah.
switches.
It's
and design them. So
People have done that, by the way. We have somebody in the community, Funky Customs, who
Yes.
contacted. I forget who it was. Was it Kale?
Kale.
He made a custom switch with Kale. He worked with a
that's what I
company.
use
And
in
they're
my guitars.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
the reason why he decided to do it was because for a long time we were using a switch for the strum bar, because the Guitar Hero guitars, besides the World Tour, used Alp switches,
Yeah.
right? And Alps obviously discontinued. Like you can get clones on AliExpress and stuff, but it's not the real deal.
They suck. They're so
Yeah,
bad.
they're pretty bad. But Kale, they have these box switches, which are like their version of like an MX switch, and they had this switch called the Navy, and it has a very heavy. Instead of having a click leaf like the Alps had, it has a click bar that gets pressed down, and so when you're searching for this like Guitar Hero kind of click in the strum bar, that strong click, that strong feedback of like I strummed, right, and you feel it, like that was the answer. But the spring was kind of light, and so for a long time I would buy aftermarket springs and open up all these switches manually and replace all the springs, and it was a pain. It was a pain in the ass. And so Funky finally came along and was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make my own switch. So he contacted Kale. He gave them the specs and everything. Like, I need this click bar. I need this spring. They send him some sample prototypes, and like eventually, like I help me and a couple other people help him test them out, and we're like, we think that it's good. He tested like actuation values and stuff like that to make sure that they didn't actuate before the click, because a lot of clicky switches have that problem where they'll go off before it actually clicks, which can be bad for a Guitar Hero guitar because of physics and gravity in the strum bar. But yeah, so people have taken it upon themselves to solve these problems, basically, of like, oh, the switch doesn't exist? Fuck it, I'm just gonna make a new one, through Kale. Because again, this is stuff you couldn't do back in the day. You hit up a company like Kale like 20 years ago as a guy, I'm like, I want a new switch. They're just like, they
Get
don't
lost.
even answer you. Get lost, man. We don't want to talk to you. Come back when you have Activision money. Then we'll talk to you.
But
go on, Karen, Charles.
I said that is amazing, because I do remember having a conversation once. I might have been with Raul about how, like, in a very fast sequence, they wouldn't bottom out the switch. He knew how far he had to go, like, to throw the hit to activate it.
Oh man, he was a real one.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, really? Because I always bottom out the switch, and I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And probably you guys can do that, but like, yeah, it is a that is a sort of rarefied air. But if you understand it, you can see like, oh, okay, I can see why that's so much better than the way I do it.
Yeah.
Well, it's
What else
been
could I make?
damn near 2 hours now.
I know.
Yeah.
Really?
It's damn near.
No.
It does not feel like
This
it.
is
So
flown by.
we should probably we should probably start wrapping up soon. I have one question for sure. I don't think we brought this up during the show. We talked about a pre-show. I see a pink SG in your background,
Yes.
Charles.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what that is?
Oh,
Very
man, you
couple
see.
This was a SG guitar that we brought. So somebody in our office just made this
It looks so
to
good.
bring to a GameStop manager show, and I think they thought that we were going to ship this thing with a big guitar, big SG guitar. But no, it was just like we made it for that. But we might have made some for a special edition later on, right, Lee? I don't know if maybe that was before your time, like a small batch.
There was those blue ones as well, right?
Yeah, there was a blue one. And then later on, Lee and his team started doing more like smarter, customizable faces, which you guys remember.
Is that the Taylor Swift faceplate?
Oh, the
Taylor.
Taylor Swift
That's the
faceplate.
Tay-Tay. Those things are legendary in the community. People are like, I need
Hard
to
to
find the
find.
Tay-Tay faceplate.
This is a very special one because you see this was her, like you could read it. This here is actually Taylor Swift's signature.
I was just gonna say, there's
Oh!
two signatures there. There's two
Oh!
signatures.
She actually signed
Very
this
cool.
and stuff.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
extremely rare. Wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
That is
He's probably got
special.
the only one.
That is very
Yeah,
special.
this is-
Holy
This
cow.
was one that she signed for us. She did a commercial for us, and so she signed a set of
wow.
those.
That's
Very
yeah.
cool.
Sick.
And now look at her.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
When the music licensing team first brought up, hey, we have a chance to work with this young artist named Taylor Swift. I think one of the first questions on the call is, who the hell's Taylor Swift?
I mean,
Oh my
in
gosh.
2008, I mean, that's not unreasonable. It's like, oh,
She
she
had
has
Love
like
Story. You belong
Story,
with me.
Picture to
What are you
Burn.
talking about?
It was
Still,
making
though.
fun of it on the airwaves,
We
and you
were
were like,
rocking out
oh,
back then, man. We were rocking out.
I get it. I get
Don't
it.
blame
I
you.
understand. That
You're
was
like-
2009.
You're like, who cares?
That was 2009. Where's ACDC? We got Van Halen coming out. Like all this stuff, you know.
It was forward thinking. You guys
Exactly.
nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Band Hero. Yeah. I
Nailed
think,
it.
we could sense greatness in her.
absolutely. She
Clearly.
was like
Um,
she was like the key artist for Band Hero.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she was, yeah.
One of the things, just after the guitar reveal and stuff, that kind of started looking at all this stuff. I was actually quite surprised the amount of folks that were, hoping it was drums.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yes.
True.
Saw a lot of drum
Yeah.
speculators.
Yeah. What's your thought on that? I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to make drums in the next minute, but
Well, I'll start. I think there's been a lot of hype surrounding Pro Drums in Fortnite Festival. That is an unreleased mode currently in the game. Like every
Yeah.
song that they've released so far has a chart with notes tracked for Pro Drums. It's just not playable in the game yet. So
Oh.
it's been us theorizing and speculating. Well, when's that coming out? There's no drums out. Nobody's gonna make a new drum controller.
Well,
Have we heard about a new drum controller? Is it drums? Is Pro Drums finally coming out?
My theory is that since the Riffmaster was a hit, they're telling PDP like, oh yeah, you guys can make the drum controller. Like that's my speculation personally.
Everyone
You know?
just wanted it to be drums because that would have meant Pro Drums was dropping in game.
Yeah, we just really
That's
want.
it.
Yes, the two are kind of connected.
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, I think Jason's nailed it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we do really want them
Guys,
on.
stop the drums! Stop the drums, guys!
Hey!
No way. We got confirmation on our show. Let's go.
I'm joking.
I'm just
I'm only joking.
That's true. You can run with
Start
that.
the drums. Don't stop.
Dex
Start
Erto, write the article.
I'm joking.
Oh God, no! Not
If you
Dex
make
Erto,
drums, make the
please.
pads like those ones right there. Those are damn good. Those
I'm
pads
just about
are
to go
good.
sit on my throne. I'm gonna go back there so I can play as soon as
Yeah, I
it's
got my
released.
drums
I'll
over
be
there.
right back there.
Mhm.
Doohickey drum kit, I reckon.
Yeah, just make
Hey,
a little drum kit that sits on
You
your
did it
desk
for
and put
Band
in
Hero
here.
DS.
Oh
just
yeah, I was
saying.
gonna say you did it for Band Hero. That was the original doohickey. You put it on top
Yeah,
of the,
kind of.
the frets on the stinking DS and was like, what? It was like green,
He's-
red,
he's
yellow,
got the DS
blue.
light right there.
I can go grab
Yeah, I
the
had
drum
it for
thing
this,
right there.
man.
It's in a little drawer. But
Why don't you guys
also,
make the you gotta make the Power Gig Airstrike drums again.
you're familiar with these, right? You guys know about Power Gig, right?
Oh,
Rise
Charles
of the
loves-
Sixth String.
Charles knows about that. Yeah.
Cool game, huh?
That's
Great
all.
game.
That's all the reaction
I
that's
was a-
needed for Power
I was a
Gig.
pop
That's it.
star guy, so
Yeah, I know you were. They have their own doohickey, the Air G attachment on their Wiimote.
Air G.
Yeah,
here,
great
you know,
stuff.
it feels like something we shouldn't be talking about. Can you find the Air G on your Wii mode? I don't know, man. That feels
Ew.
gross. I don't like it.
Ew.
No.
Well,
you
anyways,
guys-
folks.
I have one. Sorry,
One more thing.
last thing. This is kind of just a novelty question, because it's like kind of a hit, within the community too. But what was your guys' reaction to like the plug and play Guitar Hero games like Guitar Star? If you had any,
Oh.
if you had any experience with those at all, because that was just surreal. Those are just not.
Charles kept trying to get me to make a plug and play actual Guitar Hero one back in the day, but
Oh yeah.
Wow.
yeah, you did, Charles, and I was like,
Yeah.
we're busy. We're too busy
Yeah.
doing real stuff. Yeah.
There was a brief discussion of that.
But-
Yeah.
Like, to your answer, the other ones, I've got nothing to say on those because they're all a bit crap. So,
they're all made to be shovelware, so it's like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why I had this fixation with like just alternative paths to a TV without going through a console.
Yeah.
And after I left Activision, I did start another company with some other friends. I was trying to build basically controllers that would go through Android to the television. Back when I thought like Google was going to build Android TVs and stuff like that, and they never did it.
Oh.
But we were always trying to find like ways to get to a television with a game-like experience that didn't require going through consoles. And that's and I don't think Lee ever believed in it, and Lee was probably right.
Well, back then, I think with modern TVs and there are Androids in. I mean, most of these TVs have got Androids in them now, right? They're all streaming.
Yeah.
Streaming.
You can get Clone Hero on Android.
Yes, you can.
It exists.
Not even kidding. You can get it on there.
But to that point, I think in the future, maybe there's something there. That's an actual decent experience. Like, I think those things that we're talking about, those little, you plug in these little, video audio things like, yellow and that, and it's just
Yellow
like
and white.
That would just be like a little Fire Stick. You know what I mean? Android
Yeah.
stick.
And that could
imagine
be a decent experience. Like that, you can have a
That'd be
powerful little
crazy.
stick to plug in.
That'd be crazy,
Yeah.
right? What if
You
the
guys-
cracked guitar goes crazy, then it comes with a little Android stick?
You guys
know what I mean?
will
already,
appreciate this.
It already work with TVs like that anyway, and Androids like that anyways.
Well, we ran into an issue
with
with the Android group because Android was made for sort of a single device, a phone, basically, right? And we were trying to plug 4 controllers to connect 4 controllers to an Android device, and it has to know how to, like, who hit down, player 1, 2, 3, or 4. And when we were trying to do this, we were trying to find our path through Bluetooth in there. And we went to the Android group, and they were like, why would you want to connect 4 devices to like this? What are you going to connect 4 keyboards or whatever? Said, no, we're going to connect 4 game controllers to Android. And they were like, oh, we never thought of that.
Interesting.
And like, yeah, we had to find a special Bluetooth path that we found to get in, and that was like they called us in and said, hey, we're going to show you this thing, and they're going to build this Android set-top box, which they never shipped, but they were going to build one, and we thought like, oh, hey, this is it. This is early. Android is going to come to TV. This is probably like 12 years ago, and then it never did happen.
Oh god, there was that Android game console at one
Ouya.
point.
Ouya.
I was like, it was
Ouya.
a sound effect. Ouya.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, you were before that, Charles. Actually,
Yeah. We were talking to Google.
I
and
remember when that was all. When you was like, "Oh, this isn't going to work," they then all of a sudden these ones started sprouting up to try.
Well,
and
I think.
force
Well,
it
yeah, because
themselves.
Ouya was like, Kickstartered, and you know how those go.
Yeah.
Like it can
Yeah.
Kickstarters can go so many different ways, and that
Yeah.
one didn't go well. It got funded.
Oh,
they
it
put
went
out.
really well. It's just that it flopped when it came out.
It
Well, yeah,
flopped.
because people got it, they were just like, "Why did I buy this?"
Yeah.
Like, truthfully, that's how it went. Why did I buy this? I guess it's cool. It's like I can't wait to play, Angry Birds on my Ouya.
That's cool, but like there wasn't many like killer apps. I don't think for that.
No,
the,
not back
No, it
then.
was just shovelware day one, and like that's.
I mean,
already
now
not
we've got
good.
we've got Apple Arcade from like on iPads, or like Apple TV. Like Apple Arcade's great. I actually really like it. So they cooked with that one.
And the doohickey will work on my phone, so I can play my Apple.
I've
Arcade
been
games
using
with
this
it,
on my iPad. I've been
There you go.
using the doohickey
That's
on
cool.
my
I
iPad.
love the
Yeah.
doohickey. It's so
Yeah.
good.
It's the best. It's a great controller. Just really
The
quick, like,
thingamajig.
I will say that like people who this is their first experience with the Neo S. I mean, it was all 4 of ours first experience, obviously, but from what I've been seeing from the people who bought this one for the festival grip, they really like it's a solid controller. Like they really like it. So like it's a great controller. Like I think a lot of people are realizing like, wow, I've been sleeping on these crack guys. Like they make great controllers. So I think you hit it out of the park with this one, because now you're introducing people to the Neo S as a controller through this grip and the branding, right?
and
So
introduce him
really
to cracked in general and all
And
the
the
future
ecosystem.
projects. The what do you call it? The portfolio of controllers you have in the next 6
Yeah.
months, apparently.
Portfolio.
Of which we only know about the 2, I
Rhythm
guess. This
game
one and the.
That's-
Yeah.
You did,
guitar.
that, we have built a nice little community for crack. It's quite funny because a couple of folks have kind of gone, "Oh, what are you doing? You should be focusing on Switch too, and Switch stuff, and not do this." And it's just like, no, we are still focusing on other things. It's just at the moment, this is the thing that people are talking about, like, but it doesn't mean that we're not doing other stuff, like,
Yeah.
it's just
You can do multiple things. It's true.
yeah,
It's called multitasking.
If there's
but at the moment,
anybody-
this is the hot thing, right? Because that's what people are talking about. But
Yes.
when we
Yeah.
announce something else, they'll be talking about that. I'm sure.
If there's anybody that can position themselves right in case there is another plastic instrument boom, it's gonna be the people who were there originally, who know from history how to adjust and get back into it, right? Like, you guys were a part of the first video game franchise to ever break $1 billion with Guitar Hero 3, right? Who knows what the future holds? We've been talking for a while about Fortnite Festival's potential, or if any other new game pops up that might use a guitar controller in the future, because who the hell knows? I mean, I don't think it's out of the question at this point anymore, and
Non-zero
prepped
chance.
and ready.
For sure.
Yeah, non-zero.
Non-zero.
I agree.
Non-zero.
Oh, I think things. I think. I guess in closing, that was one of the realizations, I think, really, with festival, with all these different things, that it hasn't gone away, and it got in that 10 years where you kind of single-handedly, between you and the other folks around this community, have kind of had this. You've been sort of had this on your back and been keep on climbing, kind of thing, right?
We will never allow it to die.
There is a future for it. Of course, technology changes, delivery system changes, and those are all the things. When you want to make maybe a new game for this, it's not, oh, let's just make a game, it'd be cool. Like, you know what I mean? You got to think about, of course, you got to think about folks like yourselves, but you got to think about where the industry's going. How do you deliver this stuff? Music in this thing is super important, so what does that mean? And I think the Fortnite Festival thing's super interesting, what they've done there, because they've been able to skunkworks. Harmonix have been out of skunkworks within Fortnite, which is super cool. Yeah, I mean, it's super cool because you've got the people there, right? Now, of course, you look at it and go, oh, Festival, there's not that many playing that compared to Fortnite. Well, I don't care what game you've got. No one's getting the numbers of Fortnite, right?
No.
Not consistently like that.
And
right?
Fortnite Festival having 20,000 to 40,000 players on any given day is 20 to 40,000 players. That's a lot of players.
People.
That's nothing to
That's a huge
scoff
install
at for a
base.
rhythm game.
Yeah.
That's good.
Especially for a dead rhythm game.
Yeah.
Supposedly dead.
Yeah.
Dead.
So I think the future is bright. What it means, I don't know. I think we're here, like, as in we want to participate again, but we'll do it the right way, and we'll see where it takes us. Like, all we can promise is that we'll try and be true to what we've always believed. And just make the best things we can, whether it be guitars, whether it be other things, whether it be software in the future. Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, we're in. So.
I love
We're
it.
in. I can't wait.
You guys for
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
keeping the game alive and carrying it forward, and thank you guys for playing the game originally.
Thank you for making it. All of our lives have been
Yeah.
inexplainably,
Forever altered.
unmeasurably altered by just enjoy. Why did we latch on this game so hard? I can't even tell you. I can't
Can't
explain
I
exactly
Core
why.
mechanic's good.
Something about it just works. Something clicks in my
I
brain.
just said, "Wow, I really like this game."
This is fun.
Like everybody around me when I first learned about Guitar Hero was busy playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I was sitting on my Xbox 360 playing Guitar Hero 3, World Tour, and Rock Band 2 every day. And like those are like core golden memories for me. Like that was really, in a lot of ways, like, the modern golden age of gaming, especially because the 360 is just a console that I don't think you can ever replicate again. And having all the I think that having all like the online features of Guitar Hero on the 360 really helped it like carry it, especially, and kept it fresh even when, you know, Activision started to say, let's make a game and a game and a game and a game like months apart, right? But it really, like, I think everything kind of just came together and worked until it didn't, and unfortunately that's just what happens sometimes. Like, sometimes things don't last.
It was a good 5 years.
But we didn't take no for an answer, so you know,
well,
we didn't take no for
another
an answer.
great thing that happened tonight is that you guys have single-handedly got Charles to get his RedOctane vest out again and put it on.
Yes.
Let's
I
go!
That's beautiful.
We love it.
Did you have to like dig for that or what?
You know what? You guys are. I've been trying for years. He won't put it on.
No, we're
Certainly
not
a high
trying,
honor.
man.
No, for real though.
Yeah, you.
No,
I
no.
mean, Moose found the video. I forget whether it was Jake. Was it him or his brother Kai that did like the talk
No, it was
or
Charles.
whatever?
I watched this a speech, not really a speech, but a presentation that Charles did at I believe it was UC Berkeley. Was
that's my album.
Yeah, it was. I think it was right around the time that DJ Hero and Band Hero was coming out. It was like October 2009, and I watched this talk. This is shortly after we were talking with Lee about, hey, maybe Charles will come on the show too. I'm like, oh, Charles, let's. And I did some more research. I dug into you. I know all about you now. But I don't know. There was a couple parts of that talk that I thought was really intriguing. It really resonated with me. One of them was the when you made In the Groove, when you're making the dance mats, about how you wanted to control the narrative. Like, you didn't want to be dependent on somebody else's game. You wanted to have, because what if DDR dies? What if they decide not to make a new one? Then we're out of business. We can't make any dance mats for a game. It doesn't exist anymore, which isn't necessarily true because we've been making guitars for games then. Regardless, but
Regardless.
and also
Healthy
the other
fear.
one that really resonated with me that I think is probably going to be carrying through the RedOctane refugees that are now cracked is the fact that making a quality product and listening to the hardcore folks will really pay off. You have to listen to the people who play the game well. I think you gave an example of how a lot of other companies in the United States at the time were making really cheap, $20 dance mats, and you made a more premium product, like a $100 dance mat. It was like metal. It was nice, and within just like a few months, like really quickly, that one more premium option was the most well-sold dance pad in the entire country. So it kind of opened your eyes to that. People do want this. They want a premium product. They want a good product. They will pay extra for a product that is good and that works. And the way that you're able to do that is by listening.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching the video. Yeah, that was always our idea, was make a better product, not a cheaper product. And so, yeah, luckily for us in video games, there are enthusiasts like you who care about that, and so we were very fortunate early on. We learned that lesson.
Yeah, and I think that carried throughout the Guitar Hero side of things for sure, because pretty much every guitar that ever came up, most of the hardware was pretty good. And I mean, the fact that we're still using it today kind of speaks to that. Made a good product, and I'm looking forward to the folks that were formerly at RedOctane, now we're at Cracked. I'm very much looking forward to see what kind of products they can put together.
Well, they know what they're
for the
doing,
rhythm game
man.
side of things. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the future. And it's all because you guys made
Me
the
too.
game however many years ago, made the hardware however many years ago. And, can't say thank you enough.
And the last thing is, I mean, thanks to you guys as well. I mean, you've been real sort of supporters in this last few weeks, and again, sometimes we haven't really given you too much information. So that's even better. I mean, as
okay.
far as the your research, Alec, special thanks as well. I mean, Brian introduced me to Alec, like, Brian Bright, who used to at Neversoft, but just a big thank you, for like to just opening up, all the folks, here and kind of being a great sort of ambassador for what we're trying to do here. And I know if we screw up, you'll be the first one to say you screwed up.
Oh, yeah.
All of
yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Unfortunately for you,
criticism.
yes.
Hey, we're off on a
I'm
really
aware of
good
that.
foot right now. We're doing great.
I'm aware of that. So I don't want any folks out there to think this is some kind of like kumbaya and we can do what we like, because we can't.
Yeah, no.
If we garbage, then we'll get what we deserve, right? So,
Don't think too negative. Future's bright.
Yeah.
I think 2025 will be a great year for a plastic guitar, right?
I think so too.
And you never know.
We'll see. We'll see
I
what Fortnite.
peek in on your streams every now and then, and say hello.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out during the Game Awards. We had fun with that one.
That was so awesome. Yeah, thanks for being there.
It was a lot of fun. I don't know how many drinks in you were, but
No, it was. I didn't drink on that night.
Yeah.
Oh, the eyebrow raise.
No, just celebrating in other ways.
Yeah.
No, just
just hanging out.
Just excited like everyone else, right?
Good. I think we're all excited.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for coming on. I think is this our longest episode?
I think so.
We're getting there. We're over the 2-hour mark. We very rarely get over the 2-hour mark.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to speak to both of you. The time just kind of evaporated away. It was just having fun.
Worth every minute.
Truly an honor.
Yeah.
Make sure you cut out any swear words. I know Charles was doing a lot of swearing tonight. So.
That'll get raw unfiltered, unless you want us to make him look better.
I'm joking.
Look family friendly.
I don't think we've said anything on here that's out of. I hope not. Anyway, I'm fine. So just cut it out if you want.
We're pretty loose here.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Appreciate it. And Cracked Guitar 2025. Thank you both to Lee Guinchard and Charles Huang for coming on the show. Appreciate it. Couldn't have been happier to have you on. Hey, if you want to come back, we're open. Just let us know. Well, I love hearing stories. Any more stories to share from the old days? I'm all ears. We're all ears.
Hell yeah.
It's Lore Hero after all.
Yeah, we love talking about lore. And you have some incredible lore, I'm sure. We would love to hear about it. But that's it for the show, guys. Appreciate it.